We're on? Good evening. It's 7:35. We're going to have our Wednesday business meeting. It is Wednesday, September 10th. We'll do the pledge and start the meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Oh. Are you staying, Linda? Okay. Good. I'm just looking at this thing. So, let's start with the announcements. Trustee Fritchie has something?
Yes, as we know, tomorrow is 9/11, and for the past 23 years, 24 years, we've been hosting this event down at the riverfront between Briarcliff Fire Department, Ossining Fire Department, OVAC, OPD, and Briarcliff Police Department. It's at 7 o'clock down at the riverfront. It's a beautiful ceremony. If you can make it down there, please attend. Thank you.
Yeah, it really, it's beautiful, it's meaningful, it's by the waterfront, it's great. Do we have, Pat, do you have anything? Okay, this way? I thought, oh, you want me, okay, so we also want to mention, always exciting when one of our businesses, we have a lot of small businesses in this great village, La Grea Dance Company is celebrating its 40th year. They're celebrating this Friday at the waterfront in the evening. And, you know, there's going to be food, there's going to be fun, there's going to be dancing. I have to say that both my daughters went to La Grea. It was great. I think one of them went for 6 years until she couldn't do point. That's when it sort of, and once you get serious at La Guerre, they're very serious. They've produced some really amazing dancers into the Westchester Ballet Company. Also, it's mostly girls. They do have boys also gotten scholarships for a lot of the kids that go there. They're a phenomenal family. They live here in Ossining, most of them. So please go enjoy and celebrate with them for their 40th year in this community, and they are really amazing community members with lots of community volunteerism and all sorts of stuff. I think they're on their third generation because I saw Nick Logray on July 4th and with the little one, and so we're now on the third generation. So exciting stuff. I think that's it for our announcements for tonight. And we can now go into a meeting with the village manager for the work session.
Good evening, everyone. First on our agenda, our treasurer, Dale Brennan, will be giving a mid-year fiscal review.
You good?
Yes, sorry about that.
You gotta really move that a little closer in.
Yes, I've heard during the meetings when I'm on Zoom, talking to the microphone. Thank you, village manager. Good evening, board and mayor, of course. Thank you for this opportunity. I know we got a little delayed and now we're actually working towards starting our 2026 budget. But it's kind of nice to do a review at this point in time. Jamie, if you could go to the next slide, please. So this slide is just a reminder of what our 2025 village budget consisted of. Essentially, we did not exceed our tax cap. We have not in over a decade. So that's definitely good. Our tax rate actually was reduced by 3.68% in 2025 due to an increase in assessed value of about 6.20%. In reviewing now for 2026, I was waiting because Nisler's was coming out with their retirement rates, which they did just come out with the other day. They are going to be increasing, not a surprise, unfortunately. In the case of increases, though, they do offer sometimes an additional amount available towards our tax cap. So I was waiting for that to hopefully materialize. And when I went on today, they had updated the form. So in reviewing our 2026 budget, just to touch on as we're looking at general fund here, in regards to the tax cap, we will be allowed to, in total, increase our tax levy amount by 584,999 as we go into 2026. This is also taking into account that the village has 2 new pilots coming on for the 2026 budget. What a pilot does to our tax cap is we adjust for our 2025 actual pilot receivable coming in, and then it gets reduced by the 2026 pilot that we're anticipating in revenue. So essentially, it's taking it from the tax line budget and moving it to a pilot revenue within the account. If that had not occurred for these 2 new pilots, your tax cap would have been higher, but you wouldn't have the pilot revenues. It's kind of somewhat a wash, dependent, but we do estimate all the pilots with a 2% increase. So we're really just capturing it on that end versus on the tax.
What kind of
cap.
revenue are we talking per pilot?
So when I calculated the new pilot for 136-140 Croton Avenue, which is Crescent Manor, the village portion was 15,235. The Pines pilot, which has been long-standing, is 11,062. Snowden pilot is 15,815. Maple pilot, these are all long-standing, 15,619. I should have brought my glasses. And 30 Water Street is 60,894. So as we go along, these pilots are multiple years. So I've built out the schedule and also sent it to the town because they're affected by it as well. And they actually have one additional pilot for their budget that's not in the village. But that's a different conversation.
And one day, we won't have the pilot and we'll get actual real money.
Right, these
'Cause
pilots.
these are not,
have-
this is not real dollars.
Right, right. And then the one pilot is definitely reduced for the first 3 years for construction. So at any given point that construction phase ends, the pilot goes up exponentially. And we'll see, definitely real,
Real money.
higher dollars in accordance with the closer to the assessed value portion of
Right.
it.
Be 30 water
Yes.
Yeah.
and 36 and 140.
136-140 has the 3 years of construction. So the pilot remains the same for those 3 years, the dollar amount, and then it goes up, it's, exceedingly in year 4. Depending if, I can, I have,
It's all calculated. It's not no surprises.
I have it set out in a schedule that I can forward if the board's interested. And, because this is what I do for every budget, do an estimated, pilot. I do true it up when I go to do the tax cap filing for the following year, even though they'll say, did you have a material difference? And to me, everything's material. So I'm gonna, put in the actual amount to true it up. So that is where
It's
we.
like thousands instead of millions.
Mhm. So that's where we stand right now. So that's the number we will be working with as we move forward. The departments were asked to have their budgets back to finance by last Friday. I always give a little bit of wiggle time because I know it's a tough week anyway because it's a short week that week. So they've been slowly coming in this week to finish that process, and then we'll go back asking for additional information as requested before we meet with the manager in October, and then eventually with the board after the tentative budget is filed. So any questions on this slide? I think you probably have seen it multiple times by now. Okay. Jamie, next slide. So this is how we ended the year for 2024. General fund, as we were doing our capital projects and funding them at year end, we were really basing it to make sure we didn't have to take debt out on any or most projects. There was one project that we did do a bond resolution for, and that was the Dextron system in the boilers over at the community center. That was a $1.5 million project. We did go out to market last Thursday. We had a great result. Our interest rate for the ban is now 2.5270, I believe, versus 3.04 from the year before, which basically, when I did the math to take the same amount that we had borrowed in the previous year, if we had borrowed that same amount this year, what would we have saved if the interest rate was that? Because, you know, we would have saved $240,000. But, you know, that's what the economy was back then, and that's what the economy is right now.
What did you think it was gonna come in at? If this is so good?
I thought it was going to be higher twos, to be honest with you. There was another entity that went out and they were closer to 2.7. So I was very happy that, you know, we beat everybody. You know, that we came in lower. But of course, we did get a fabulous rating, credit rating for the village. So that always
That
helps.
plays, yeah.
Yes, yes. And I thank everybody for their help in getting that move forward and having a great interview process with Moody's. And we'll do it again next year. And probably at that point, we'll be turning some of our short-term financing into long-term. Hopefully, the interest rate will be going down as we move forward into next year. That is yet to be determined. The Fed has a market rate meeting on the 17th of this month. So we'll see. We did have a meeting with one of our banks last week who seems to think, you know, that interest rates will be adjusting downward, but time will tell. So we will project as we always do, very conservatively, especially when it comes to interest earnings in our budget, because anything over, you know, X is really a one-time revenue. You really can't, you know, hang your hat on it, and we don't like to do that. So general fund had a slight increase to the fund balance, so pretty close to flat. Water fund had a definite increase to fund balance of a little over 3 million, which we knew because we've been bolstering up to take on the new debt. The new debt first payment is due this year, next week. So we're well positioned, and we added another borrow amount of 25 million this year as we continue moving forward with the water treatment project. We will be looking at the water fund budget closely. I had done an analysis of cash flow and bond payments and project payments and projecting, you know, the budget when I, you know, started this with a 5-year plan. At that point for 2026, in that plan, we had estimated a 6% water rate increase for 2026. We'll see when we get to the final numbers, if that still remains at 6. We'll take close, you know, look at it. I don't think it'll be higher, you know, whether the potential is there to be a little bit lower. We'll have to look at it, but we're on target. So that's not an issue.
Okay.
Sewer fund had a slight increase to fund balance. It is one of the smaller funds. We did have a large sewer break in 2023, as you can know, 2024, that kind of took over some of the fund balance that we would have normally, you know, put back, but that's part of the reason, we budget the way we do so that we don't have an issue. Next slide, if no one has any questions on this. Okay.
You note here in the footnote that the targeted 2025 ending fund balance is 12,034,000 for the general fund. What's the recommended range for general fund balances?
General fund balances in accordance with Moody's recommendation is hovering around 20%. That's what they like to see, which would basically be about, yeah, give or take. I was going to try to do the exact math, but yeah, you're good. About 10 million. So we're definitely right there. This isn't taking into account any items, that are going to be received over budget in revenue or under budget in expenses. This is just a flat, if nothing else
This is
changed,
where we are now.
this is where, yes, this is where we would end up. Of course, nothing's going to be certain until we get actually 3 months into next year to really determine where we are, but I do try to project as we get into December, because I do put in a fund balance schedule into the adopted budget so that it says, okay, this is what we're estimating. This is what we believe, to be. I'm usually pretty close, in those projections. So
Did this include like OSAP or any of the negotiated contracts or any of that?
this part right here, we do have amounts in contingency for negotiations, retro amounts. So it is there, as well as every year I do a calculation and charge off to the operating account the amounts of retro for that given year, and I put in a liability account. So you're not going back to the well to say, hey, now we owe, $1 million, but we never budgeted for it. We never, we have maybe not all of it, but
Well, I mean, not be,
90% of
yeah,
it.
right.
And so depending on, what the final result is, as well as the retirement rate that's applied. Because as we budget, we tend to budget dependent on the full rather than the part, because there are certain pieces that are lower or not subject to retirement, like the cap of overtime. Over X, it comes off. So, we try to leave a little space so that any, unanticipated things, might then be covered by that. Any other questions on the slide? Oh, she already moved on. So this, we just wanted to give a picture of our revenues and what makes up the general fund revenue budget. Water fund is really easy. Its user rates is 99% of it. Sewer is the same. Section 8 is mostly, again, 99% of it is federal dollars. But general fund, is a little more play in terms of where our funds come from. You have taxes and tax penalties. Of course, that's the biggest slice of the pie at 58%. The next biggest slice is our sales tax, gross receipts, and franchise. Sales tax has been holding steady, knock on wood. To date, we are slightly over in our anticipated projection. If we're just looking at it from quarter to quarter, the July 25th sales tax numbers that came in were 1.36% over last year's. Not a large difference in that. If it remains flat going through to the end of the year, if nothing else changes, in accordance with our budgeted amount for sales tax of 6.7, we're anticipating receiving potentially about $700,000 over that budget amount. But if it goes down, we're okay because we didn't budget to the full, extent of what potentially, maybe could come in, because we do try to be conservative, and I'm glad the board supports that. Because definitely
If you looked at this graph over the past 3 years, is it basically about the same?
it is. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it really does not change, too much. Intermunicipal revenues, those are our IMAs
Yeah,
that we go
right.
back and forth with, that usually stays about the same. Department fees, 5%. That's about the same as well. And then you have fines and forfeitures, which is actually gone up a little bit in most recent months that I've seen, with parking fees exceeding what they have in prior months. So that's something we're keeping an eye on. And those are really the higher revenue.
And grants are mostly pass-throughs, right? I mean, you have a 1% up there. I'm sure
Right.
that's like a rounding error of some sort.
Mhm.
So most of the grants, all the grants are just pass-throughs. There's no, although one would argue there's actually expenses associated with them, but I don't know how you even begin to calculate all
Right.
the expenses.
Right,
Okay.
right, that's correct. Yes, and some of them are, contained also, within capital, so they're not even
Yeah.
represented here. But in terms of grants, mostly those are, what are you here?
Hmm.
I think- Yes, but you're correct. It's just, representative of the funds coming in, not the total.
Well, the youth bureau also is one of the few grant buckets that's operational as opposed to
Yes.
capital. So
Mhm.
Right. Most of the other ones I think are capital.
they're
Right.
almost exclusively capital.
Mhm.
So
Yes. Yep, that's correct.
All right.
Okay, are we done with the pie?
Lovely as it is.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. So this is just a little more detail on the individual categories. Tax revenues, we did just complete our second half tax collection that was due at the end of July. Currently, our 2025 taxes compared to the warrant, we are at 99.11% collected for the year, which is definitely a good number. We will not know where we turn out in terms of allowance for uncollected, which is a figure that we calculate 60 days subsequent collection. So that'll be end of February of next year's collection. Any tax revenue that has not materialized, we actually have to account for on our balance sheet. So that is yet to be determined, but I don't see a red flag at this point, seeing as our tax collection was strong. We have sent out notice of foreclosures for our 2023 liens. We do it.
Has that gone up?
It's about the same.
Okay.
We have 13 properties that are receiving those letters. The redemption date on those is November 3rd. So we will see if some of those properties hopefully can drop off. I have been in contact with one property owner. So hopefully more will be calling in as we get closer, trying to explain the process. And hopefully that amount will go down.
I just want to ask one thing from why do you call the deficit column, like, why do you call that excess? Why do you label that as excess?
That's what comes over out of admins.
Oh,
If-
if it's
if-
in parentheses, that's not its access.
Okay,
A positive number would be the excess.
Mhm.
Since we're only halfway through the year, I would expect all of those to.
No, okay, so that's just a, it's just to me a
Right,
weird
yeah.
terminology.
Mhm.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
you had a question.
Mhm.
Of the, I'm just curious, and I don't need to know exactly the properties or numbers, but of the 13 that you sent, that you're sending foreclosure notices to, about how many of those are residential versus rentals?
They're all residential.
Okay,
Yes.
but none of them are like commercial rental properties.
No.
right?
Not that I'm aware of. Stuart, yeah, no. Okay. He's on that email chain. And most of them, I think, if not all of them, also have prior,
Okay.
other,
Ongoing,
you know,
yeah.
liens, unfortunately, as well. It's usually not just one,
That's fine.
year. Pilot payments, as we just spoke of, are part of our other property taxes. Those are due just like the town tax bill as of April 30th, so that portion is complete. We do also have tax penalty revenue contained in that grouping. We are on target basically for our budget amount for tax penalties for the year. Property cleanup is only billed as needed as those invoices or services have to be performed. So that's not ever a definite number. There is an offsetting expense account though, that goes against it. So if you're not receiving the revenue, you're also not incurring the expense for those. Sales tax, 1 of 4 quarters received. We actually received the second quarter in August, which I think we already really talked about. So that brings our current year revenues. Because I think in here I put a projection. Yes, I had put a projection. So we're at 3,789,513 in sales tax revenues. So that non-property tax 2025 budget amount is 7,435,000, 6,700,000 of that is for sales tax. Other pieces are gross utilities tax, as well as franchise fees. We have received 2 quarters of franchise fees. We're going to have to look at them for 2026 when we go into our budget process. In 2025, we had reviewed the franchise fees and actually reduced the revenue budget. I think we potentially will be doing that again in 2026. Sorry. Department income, PEG revenues, as I'm sure Stuart has spoken about with the PEG agreements. Those have been received, but there will be one more coming in October, I think. So that will raise our amount over budget. This is another revenue line that we budget the revenue and the same dollar amount is budgeted on the expense side as a wash. Again, there is a specified fund balance amount for our PEG revenues that we update every year at year end and allocate interest to keep those funds separate for any PEG capital expenses that are needed during the year. Again, department income, you have your public safety, which is the building department inspection fees, police voluntary duty, that again is only if it occurs. It's not a guaranteed thing and it's not an all-time, all the time type of thing. And it's a wash as well. There's health fees, and that's really just for the clerk. For the birth certificate copies prior to 2011. After 2011, the town took it over. So any of those are retained by the town. Transportation is parking, which is municipal, muni lots, train station, and meters. The interesting thing with parking is that the majority of it comes in the beginning of the year because you have your station parking, which is sold really in December, but we take it in as a deferred revenue and then move it in January to the proper bucket. Muni station, which again is annual and collected basically in the first half of the year. The meter parking is ongoing, and that we have seen an increase. Thank you, Maddie. Especially with the kiosk system.
That's all embedded in transport. Where's that
Yeah,
all?
That's
So
right.
we can't see like what the muni parking is, right? Versus, it's all in there in one
Right.
place.
It's the one figure of 555,000 is the station parking, which is about 210,000
Okay.
budgeted. We brought in about 200,000. Muni parking is, I think, about 85,000 budgeted. We are a little low in that for the current year. But the balance of that is the metered. I think we raised the budget to 145,000 in 2025, and we're definitely going to
The meter is what we put in.
the parking meters.
Yeah.
Yes,
For the on-street.
Yes.
Two and the.
yes.
and the
Mhm.
dashboard.
So
Mhm.
that's doing a little better than had, because that money's actually supposed to pay for the expense of having put them in and then something beyond that. Okay, so that's
Right.
good.
And plus we have the hardship parking, which I think
All in there,
is
yeah.
about 100,000. Yeah, which that one usually exceeds as well, but you know, we're parking on the street.
Yeah, so that's
yeah.
bad news for in some ways and
Right.
good news in others.
Yes, exactly.
But that's one of those, I'd
Mhm.
actually like to see that at zero, but that's okay.
Right. Understood. Culture and recreation, that's all our fabulous recreation programs, day camp,
Very
after
good.
school, pool, all the good stuff. In speaking with Bill and having him work with me on projections through the end of the year, it looks like definitely going to exceed those budget lines by at least a little bit. So that's
Yeah, it
always.
can't be that much. It's at 78%.
That's-
We're in September, we're like,
Right.
this is mid-year, so it can't be
Mhm.
that much.
Yeah, yeah, and we still have after-school program.
Right.
You have Spartan Swim that's coming through. You're still gonna have some of the adult swim classes, you know, some of those programs that will go through to the end, you know, of the year to play into the role of increasing our revenues received. So we're on target. Sorry.
So just to tie this to the later or the next conversation, so if we get grants for something like the youth bureau,
Mhm.
those would those grant monies show up in this row, in this line?
No, they generally
Yeah,
show up.
I didn't see them in that detail.
Yeah, if you go downwards to the miscellaneous grouping, it's Medicare Part D, that's received in the fourth quarter, and Youth Bureau grants, so that's all the ones that aren't state or federal. They're county or White Plains are grouped into the quote unquote miscellaneous. There is a lag on you could submit and you might not receive it, you know, for a month, 2 months, maybe 3, you know, depending. We do eventually get it. But in cases it, it's in the mail.
It's in the non-existent mail.
The mail. So, that's down below. Home and community services, so this is where our quarterly dumpster billing is charged. We had 2 of 4 quarters billed at this point. The IMAs, those are set till we do a true up allocation for some of them at year end, and then that number may be adjusted either way, depending on actual expenses. License and permits, building department permits are holding steady to their budget amount. and street opening permits. That sometimes has a lag as well, because those are generally the largest revenue source of that is Con Ed. So we'll bill them, but it takes.
They're right behind the grants in the mailbox.
Yes, yes, exactly. Fines and forfeitures, so these are our justice court.
The, some of the stuff is on budget,
Mm.
but where are we on a 3-year, like regression? Like, where are we? Is everything about the same?
It is.
Okay, because the
It
budgets
is.
are what we set based on our best guess. So we're on
Right.
budget, good news.
Mhm.
But basically, the story has been consistent for the past 3 years.
Yes.
Because COVID changed a lot of the stuff, the parking, the this. But
Right.
it seems like we're now.
We're now evening out, yeah,
Okay.
settling out. Yeah,
Okay.
where we had large, yeah, I know.
No, I mean,
Where we had.
we were
a
going
large
nuts for a while.
swing,
Yeah,
right.
we're now
and-
back.
Right,
Okay.
yes, we're more, into, normal. And just
Right.
like we used to go back and say, oh, let's go look at 2019, right? Because that was.
Because that was the
really-
last
that
normal
was like
year.
The real.
Right.
Yes, yeah, litmus test. To see.
So when you're gonna do the budgets with us, you're gonna have a 3-year on everything, so we can all see where.
Oh, it'll be on there,
Yeah.
sure. Yes, because the budget reports go back to, I think it's 2021.
Okay,
So it'll have 21, 22, 23, 24, and where we are in 25.
okay.
Yes, absolutely. So as we touched on briefly, justice court fines, look to be, definitely, well,
I lost you. Hold on. Where are we?
fines and
Okay.
forfeitures.
Fines and forfeitures,
Yep,
got it. Oh,
yep.
okay.
So your
Got
budget
it.
is 616. We did receive almost double the amount for our July
Hmm.
fines and forfeitures attributable to maybe another parking.
Mhm.
If that's where the parking tickets go.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fines.
Yeah.
Doesn't say parking, but yeah, I guess it does.
Yeah, over on the right, yeah, it says justice court.
Fines.
Fines.
Yeah.
Sale property comp, for loss, so a large part of this is, our insurance recoveries. Included in our insurance recoveries are our RX, our medical pharmacy rebates, that we get. The checks in the mail. There seems to be like a 9-month lag on the actual, purchase occurring and yeah, so in terms of audit, I'm really, I'm really using, 1/4 of the prior year and then 3/4 of the current year, in our fiscal year, just because,
They always pay.
yeah. That's the way that works, as well as if we have any, stop loss, reimbursements, those, come into those lines as well. And if we sell any of our, uh, surplus equipment, cars, vehicles, anything of that, I don't think we had any of those yet this year. I don't believe. I could be wrong.
But I could swear we voted on.
I thought we approved,
Yeah.
Did we approve? Maybe it hasn't gone to
Oh, but
auction.
they haven't been sold yet.
Okay,
Should put them on the
Mhm.
corner, put them for sale sign.
right. Yeah, you have to
Actually,
do a
I think it's a process.
resolution.
That check will
for-
also be in the mail. The
Yeah.
line of check.
Yeah. Miscellaneous, we did just touch on before, so that's the Youth Bureau, portion of grants, and then Medicare, Part D, which that, doesn't materialize till about March, of next year. But I do an entry backwards to accrue the revenue to make us whole. Interfund revenue is, our water and sewer. So because water and sewer departments reside in a building that is really owned and purchased by the general fund, there is an amount paid basically for rent that's contained so that the monies go back and forth, and the general fund is made whole for that portion, as well as Section 8. And then alarm monitoring. That's part of the water sewer, back into it. State aid, mortgage tax, we had received 50%. The second half amount will be received in December. That has gone down somewhat from prior years where we were seeing a big bubble of people purchasing or refinancing. And of course, with the interest rate increases, the refinancing end slacked off. But the purchasing end seems to still continue. And so for our revenue line, for mortgage tax, which again, we stayed with the norm of, 2019. So we're okay, in regards to the budget amount. We'll see what the second half of 2025, brings. AIM funding, has been the same amount for years and years and years and years and has not changed. Again, for this year, that revenue will be coming in, I believe, October. That amount will come in, as well as Youth Bureau state grants that I know FEMA has been working on. You filed a couple submissions already for stuff, whether state or county. They're in the works. Federal aid is basically we just add a revenue for we can get 50% back for the bulletproof vest program. So we budget that amount in there. I have not seen a submission come through yet, so at the point we get towards the end of the year, I'll see if it was filed. Which again, checking them out. Interfund transfers, this is an amount that I bring back over from debt service that was retained from closed capital projects or interest earnings or anything on that side that helps offset a little bit the general fund debt that's getting paid during the year. And appropriated fund balance remains the same right now till we go forward with a capital budget resolution for the parking hub. At that point, that number will change to increase the revenue side, and the expense side will also increase for the transfer out to the capital fund. Okay. Any questions on this slide? Good, okay. We kind of already touched on everything on this slide. We talked about sales tax revenues and where we currently stand. Parking meter, transportation revenues we touched on. We also touched on recreation revenues, interest earnings. We kind of touched on where we are going to exceed our $450,000 revenue budget on that. But again, just being conservative, we'll have to look at it for 2026 to see if that's still a valid number as we move forward. Building permit revenues are 39% higher than 2024's first half revenues. I did not reach back out yet on details on that one, but I can follow up. Good, okay. All right. The next page. So this is our 3-year expenditure comparison. So this is expenses for 2023, 24, and 25. Things fluctuate, sometimes dependent on timing. A lot of it is timing. We know the expenses there. It's kind of like it's in the mail and our check hasn't gone out. So essentially, when you're looking at these numbers, they are all in the same ballpark from year to year to year with slight variations depending. Interfund transfers is like the big standout over here. That's because in 2024, we booked the transfer for our ARPA funds to be moved out to the capital project. fund. And essentially, there is a resulting changing entry at the end of the year for the fourth quarter, because unlike other grants and projects and monies coming in like that, you can only move it at the time that you expend it for ARPA. So I had to move, I had to move it back at year end. So you will be seeing another budget adjustment to take the next piece of those funds to get moved out in 2025 over to the capital side of the ledger. And I am anticipating, because we did project using the ARPA funds towards the electric contract that's over there, that will clean up that end of the stick, which is good for reporting, because for ARPA, we had to obligate by the end of 2024 and expend by the end of 2026. So we're well within that window. If that works out the way I think it currently is projected to work out. Any questions on that slide? Yep. Okay. Jamie, next one, please. All right. Hi, Stuart. I told you to bring popcorn. So this is our fabulous Corporation Council expenditure budget. We do retain the Labor Council in your line because it's a 1420 account, and so it gets pulled along with all the other 1420 codes, as well as regular labor. I'm sorry, special counsel is in your home department, as well as tax certiorari claims. We are currently at 44,000 of our $75,000 budget for tax cert refunds. I have not seen anything directly for the village coming through at this point, but you never know. They kind of just show up, like the one we just got for the town. So we always keep an eye on those. Labor Council doesn't generally have a lag in billing, maybe a little bit, but Special Counsel definitely does seem to have more of a lag. And as we move into the first quarter of 2026, we'll still be bringing expenditures back as accounts payable items to 2025 as we play catch up with our special counsel invoices. We had increased our budget for Labor Council in a potential anticipation, of increased costs. So that's why if you're looking, it might seem, we're way under budget, but, maybe not necessarily dependent on what the future holds. Any questions on this slide? We're okay. We move on to the police department. Thanks, Jamie. So the police department is within or under budget. Currently, on all expenditure lines, they did have open positions during the first half of 2025. They currently still have 2 open positions, but hopefully those will be filled before the end of the year. So we're projecting as we thought, and it's relatively close to the prior year expenditures, which makes sense since there's no contractual increase. So it's definitely in line. Any questions on that slide?
No, I mean, what you're saying is like you're expecting it to be
Mm-hmm.
on or below
Right,
the
right.
budget at the end of the year.
Yes.
And that's really kind of like
Yep.
the short story for each of these.
Right,
Like,
essentially, yes. And especially the police department, because they have contractual obligations that aren't paid until October, November, December. Unlike the CSA and managers, their health stipend is paid all in one lump in November. Their holidays, super holidays, all of that is paid in the fourth quarter of the year. So it will eventually catch up to the budget amount. Okay, next slide. So this is fire department, again, is within or under budget. Part of the 2025 budget was for certain expenditures connected to LoSAP. We have expended some of those and encumbered some others, which we've been working on. So in regards to the budget line, because we increased the budget to cover those costs, but haven't expended it yet, it kind of looks artificially low in comparison at the 26%. But that will be also playing catch up as we move forward to the end of the year. Okay, next slide. The building department, again, is under budget and again has open positions, unfortunately. So we're hoping that those will get filled while their overtime line is currently over budget. Understandably, it will be offset by the regular payroll personnel lines that are now basically under budget, creating a wash. Additionally, there was a position in there that we're going to have to move the funds from a payroll line to a consultant line. But again, that's a straight line budget adjustment that I can just clean up as we go along. And was discussed during the budget process last year, and we will rectify for 2026. Any questions on that slide? No? Okay. So DPW budget lines are well within budget. This department, I always say, I hope it doesn't snow. But we will see. They do currently have one unfilled position at this point. They are doing interviews now, right? Yeah, like literally now. So hopefully that position will be filled in the short term. Some of their budget lines are reactive. If a truck breaks down, you have a line to fix the truck. If the water line, well, no, I don't want to say water line because that's a different thing. The gas boy computer goes down, you need something, fixed on that. So a lot of their items can be reactive, but a lot of their lines are also proactive. So you have your consultant lines for the oil burners and that kind of stuff, the copiers, like everybody, basically has across the village. They're contained with their own department. But they're currently within budget, and hopefully it does not snow and we'll have a little wiggle room on the other side. Any questions on this one? Good.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to Parks and Rec. So Parks and Rec overall budget, again, just as we've seen, it seems to be a pattern here, is on target, especially in terms of their revenues, which we just talked about before, to potentially exceed. July to September are their high activity months, obviously, because they're running camp, which is one of the larger expenses for the recreation program. They actually had hired 110 part-time staff to run the program this year. I know. When I did that count, I was like, my goodness. But that's great because the camp revenues were also up. So definitely a great value for the money, our camp program. And I'm sure Bill's always thinking of ways to make it even better every year. So we'll see what happens during our 2026 budget conversation. Our youth bureau expenditures were at 35% of the 410,000 budget. But again, youth bureau also is high activity during the summer with our summer youth employment program. And we had a fabulous intern in the finance department. So thank you, Chima, very much. That's a great program and is really a big help. I'm not sure how thrilled they were with scanning, but we need that scanning done. And a great job done by all. So we're looking to hopefully stay in line with the Youth Bureau expenditure lines. We're working on utilizing the tracking code system that's available in Edmonds, even to a higher level. We started this year with applying it during the payroll process to actually take pieces of people. It's still a work in progress. We will always looking to fine tune. I created a new payroll timesheet for the part-timers to hopefully get everybody in the buckets that we're thinking, we're going to submit back for. So it should make putting in for the grant reimbursements easier and more electronic, because we can just transfer all that data out by that tracking code built by youth program grant into an Excel document, and then you can just copy it and paste it to, it's usually the state voucher form that they want all the information input into. So thank you, Chima, our patience, as we keep working through that process. All right, any questions on that slide? All right, next slide is employee benefits expenditures. This is always a volatile, unfortunately, budget, because we are self-insured, which means we pay dependent on actual costs for health insurance and workers' comp. When I looked at where we are for health insurance, currently we're at, I think it was 40, no, let's check it out. 42.5% of our claims budget we've expended to date for our health, and that's through today. The caveat with health insurance, though, is there's quite a lag between us, receiving a bill that's really from 3 months ago. As we move into 2026, we do bring back all the expenses. When those invoices come in, we separate out which fiscal year the expense was incurred, and we bring them back to the correct year as is, as well as any attached revenues that might potentially come in through stop loss for that same time period. So, while I'm looking at it, I'm saying, yeah, that looks good. Anything can change, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've seen that.
Unfortunately, but we do keep an eye on it. Workers' comp, again, is another one that we're self-insured. We have been doing very well, knock on wood, thank goodness. I know, I don't want to jinx it. To
Nothing
date,
like feeling great when everybody's like knocking on wood. 82 slides, so we're sitting here praying.
What happened?
You can actually knock wood.
Oh.
That's
That's like
meeting is
real
over.
wood.
You can't do that.
That's real wood.
I was trying.
Them's the rule.
So we will keep our positive attitude and keep an eye on it as we move forward. That's basically all we can really honestly do
Right.
with that.
And what are we thinking for the upcoming budget? What's the increase in benefits in your opinion? Every year it's been going up like sort of crazy.
It does fluctuate, and it's gonna depend on a couple different variables, so I don't want to give an answer
Okay.
on that right now.
All right.
But
Can you give a range?
the
It's
low
gonna go up.
range.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
The low range would be, 5, the high range, would be 12, essentially. We did call for what we term the first pass on health. And so basically they go through our 2025 expenditures through May 31st and then project those out. That first pass though is kind of a blip. I really look for the second pass. The second pass goes through August 31st with expenditures. It's usually more of a true representation of how the third pass is going to play out, which comes in mid-December. Mid-December, though, we've already adopted the budget.
already done-
So, at that point, we're kind of committed, essentially. But what I've seen in prior years is the second pass always seems to tend to be higher than the third. That's just been, for whatever reason, and I don't know, because they're putting in a projection too, right? When they're giving me, these amounts, to say, hey, I think it's this, but it might go up 8%, depending on,
So you got it.
yeah, exactly. So, we budget on the second, and have some contingency in there just to cover ourselves, and make sure. And as you know, we do monitor during the year. There was one year that I did come back to the board and said,
Yeah.
we're not gonna make it. We're gonna have to do a budget adjustment and this is how, we're
Yeah.
gonna cover it. This is how we're gonna do it. We had a plan. But unfortunately it does happen. Not too often, but it does. And it's, a lot of it is outside of our control. But we do plan, as best as we can. And we will do that for 2026 as well. All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
Concerns? No? All
No, I
right.
mean, we get to go through it all in detail in another month and a half,
Yeah.
so. We'll ask other questions. But
All right.
Appreciate all the work.
All right. You're welcome.
Any-
And if you have any questions, throughout, just my door is obviously open and email and whatever. Just chuck me a ring, and we can go through, line by line, or, if you're just looking for a report, I can just shoot it on out. Okay?
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Thank you very much.
Madam.
Long-awaited performance. Thank you, Dale. We really
She's enjoying it. Look at her. Look how happy she is.
She is.
It's like we're doing her a favor that she can go through this.
We owed her that one,
Yeah.
for sure. You have been patiently.
That's all right.
So, our next item, we have, Chima Monday, our Youth Bureau Director here. We had, I think it's good that we had the finance presentation right before this, and we had talked a bit at the legislative session last week about grants and the impact of grants. You're getting money, but sometimes you're getting money for things that you have a match for, if it's a capital need, or in this case, operational cost. And fitting in an operational grant that may require extra staff can be challenging because we're certainly not able to hire through the civil service full-time staff that easily with grant funds. That's a real challenge. However, we reviewed the grant opportunities for investing kids, and in reviewing it, we decided to go with 2 grants instead of the 3 options, really doing the same grants we did previously, as well as a new grant that we have that can offset costs for a program that we're already doing for team sports. In each case, these bring money into, because they offset expenses that we would have regardless for staff, that is committed. So, with that, Chima, do you want to come up and we'll just run through? Pardon me? Yes. Oh, and I'm sorry, we have Harry Campbell, our chair of our youth advisory board too, here tonight. So, yes, Harry, if you want to come up too, you're welcome.
I'm getting a sense that everybody sitting here wants to run away.
Harry, I can't hear you.
Okay, I wasn't talking, but okay, now I'm talking.
She's
I
saying that,
said mayor,
You're
not
me.
Karen. Sorry.
Oh, mayor can't, okay.
yeah, I'm sitting too far back.
All right, so, Chima, why don't you, take the board through the programs and maybe talk a little briefly what we've done so far too. We had some good anecdotes about things that have happened with the swim program and the after-school program, so it's all
Okay.
yours.
Thank you, Karen. Good evening, Board of Trustees members.
Is the microphone on, Shima? I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Is the green light on?
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, do you want to just bring it a little closer? I know you're soft-spoken.
Good evening. Thank you all for having me here today. So like Karen said, the plan is to apply for the 2 existing grants that we have right now. The water safety grant, which is a swimming program, and the after-school program, the OES program, which is an after-school program. Currently, we have been running these 2 programs for the past 3 years. The Invest in Kids grant is a 3-year grant. So what happens is you apply, and the grants, if you get awarded, it continues for 3 years. And every 3 years, you have to re-up and apply again. So in the last iteration, we applied for the water safety and the OES program. Out of the water safety program, for each year, we've had 6 sessions of swimming activities.
Just so she knows to move the slide.
Okay.
I can barely hear. Did you say change the slide?
Jamie, next slide, please.
All right, no problem.
All right, thank you. So just a little background about what we currently are doing with the program right now. So the water safety program has been running for the past 3 years, like I said, and it's been a 6 weeks sessions for the year, including the summer sessions. For each of these sessions, we've been enrolling at least between 90 and 100 participants taking advantage of the swimming program. It's been a huge success. We've had some young people finish the lessons and move on to get a lifeguard, become a lifeguard. As you know, that's a need in the state, in the country, in fact, in general. And so this program has helped us to move in that direction, to be able to help those that will ordinarily would not have the opportunity to pay for a swimming lesson to gain that opportunity.
But I think just one thing I want to add, because some of these kids really have no exposure whatsoever to water sports. Their parents might not be swimmers, and they really came without even really understanding what a swimming lesson was. And some of them are now on the swim team, is my understanding too. So that's a pretty phenomenal achievement with kids who had no exposure to being on the swim team, and I think one became a lifeguard or is becoming a lifeguard. So
Yeah.
Does this program also pay for the lifeguard course?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so just to add to what Karen stated earlier, so we had some kids that came in, they didn't know what a swimming trunk is. And so we had to purchase and get them ready for the swimming program. And now you see them, the progress that they've made in the last 3 years is just amazing. So we've seen the success of this program, and the need still exists. And so given those two parallels, we decided to continue with the program. So with this new Invest in Kids grant, that will go from 2025, 2026 to 2028. The idea here is to be able to continue the program, since it's been a huge success. In this iteration, it will allow us to have at least 100 young people participating in the swimming program between the ages of 1 to 18 years old. The program, again, like I said, will go from 2026 to 2028. It will be 6 weeks with six 6 week sessions throughout the year, including the summer season. Next slide, please. Thank you. So looking at the budget, right? So in the last iteration, there was some, I wasn't, the way the program was designed was a little bit, it didn't allow us to recoup and offset some of the expenses. So in this budget, what we've done is we've added try to use what we already have in place. When I mean that, I mean the full-time staff. If you look at here, we have a full-time youth advocate. And we are billing about 145 hours of his time towards this project. That will translate into about $8,600 in offset for the village. You look down again regarding the water safety instructors. Those are the ones that we have to, they're already here. And we are just using them to, run the program. That will give us about $8,600 for the swimming instructors. The lifeguards who will be providing the instructions for the kids, their expense would be $17,773. And then for current staff, rec staff, that will be part of the program, we have embedded a $13,000 and $750 of their time in this project. So essentially, when you look at it, the total grant amount is $50,000. The match for this grant is about $5,000, which is about 10% of the total grant. But then you look at the bottom and you see that because we've been using existing staff for this project, we will be offsetting about $24,000 or thereabout for this project. So essentially, the village will not be expensing any funds. Rather, will be offsetting funds through this project.
So the offset is you're taking money out of the grant to pay existing staff?
So you have two staff people, the youth advocate and the lifeguard captain, who are they're going to be here. We're paying them no matter what. We were able to, and again, with the youth advocate, the idea is to offset the youth advocate position, but in this case, we're also offsetting rec staff. So one of the things about youth bureaus is they're usually separated and they're siloed from the rec program. So you'd run a program and all of your incremental staff that you would need for the program would be under the youth bureau. Here, what we're doing is, and Portchester is doing something similar, if you remember, we're the two youth bureaus that were formed more recently, and the only two villages that have youth bureaus. So in order to have a greater capacity to run programs, we're running programs using existing rec staff, so that you are going to see that rec staff salary be offset by this program, as well as some of the other grants that we're looking at, as for the youth bureau program. So in this case, that the youth bureau doesn't have to necessarily hire more people. Those people are here. They're already doing that job. It's not necessarily, we looked at the budget and we looked at their job in terms of what the overtime budgets are. It's not necessarily increasing that all. There's some incremental staff that's needed for the water safety instructors and the lifeguards. But basically, this program brings money into the rec center and obviously the youth bureau, but it brings money into the rec center too, thus offsetting expense as opposed to generating more expense.
Good.
Just for me, just to help clarify, so the lifeguards, you're doing this.
Sorry, do you have the microphone on?
Yeah, he does.
Yes, I do. It's
Okay.
on me and I'm leaning in. Um, I speak softly. So for example, the lifeguards exist. So essentially the expense for the lifeguards, it'd be like you're paying them extra versus what their normal staffing is in order to do this.
Yes.
Is
so
that why
the-
that's not capital letters versus the other?
Yeah, to be honest, there are some lifeguards, I think Bill said that maybe yeah, I just don't know the division of time, but for the water safety instructors and for the lifeguards, there is some additional, I don't know whether it's hours or an additional lifeguard, it's, position, because those are part-time positions.
Okay,
So I'm not exactly sure which, but there is some incremental need that the grant covers.
Yeah.
But net,
okay.
You're-
No, I'm
you're ahead of
just
the
trying
game,
to
yeah.
understand the what's it takes. And so next year, since this is 2026, it's 27, 28. So theoretically, deep in the weeds of the budget, there would be a $24,750 transfer into income for the rec department out of this because it's kind of youth bureau, which is a separate budget line versus rec department pool, which is a separate budget line.
you need a microphone.
Sorry.
Before Jamie can say it, I just want to get on top of that.
You know me.
So that's part of what we've actually been going back and forth with, especially with the tracking codes and how our payroll, is sent up. Essentially, if we could carve out the specific pieces that are attributable to the water safety program during that time period, and we could then pay them through payroll, track them in accordance and charge it to the youth bureau. That way you're really recognizing the expense where it belongs, because it's a youth bureau grant. And the revenue portion of it, which is also then under the youth bureau. And yeah, yeah.
Understand that. I mean, that's the gist of my question. I'm just trying to understand because when we go through this in November, I'll be looking for, if this gets approved, right? Well, it's the kind of thing.
Hopefully, yeah, by November, we'll
So,
have
so
that
my next, so
information.
that was my next question for each of these, and you'll probably only have to answer once. When will we hear back? If we get it or
Regarding the
not?
grant,
Yeah, if we say yes, apply, and you apply, and when would you hear back?
well, we hope to hear back by December. The grant starts January
Mhm.
1st, and so the idea is that you get to know whether you get it or not before the end of the year.
But after we do the budgets, right? Okay.
We may have an idea by the time
We'll
the
see.
budgets, but with,
We do have a good chance to, but it's not 100%, right? Nothing is 100%.
Until it's signed.
It's been, especially in the youth bureau, the money has been taken back or wasn't given when we were told it was a sure thing. So, but that was a while ago, different environment.
Okay, all right. Next slide, please.
Jamie, next slide.
Jamie?
No, it's there.
Oh, got it.
That's a new one.
There's a delay.
Okay, go back a little,
Go back one slide.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's
Alright,
it.
So here you're looking at the OES program, Iceland Youth Engaging in Success After School Program. Like I said, this is one of the programs that we've been running. This program runs from the middle school. So with this program, we've had a lot of success. Just the school system do have after school program, but it's not enough, right? There's always a waiting list that exists. And so we know that the need continues to be
Mhm.
there. And so the plan is to continue the program. We plan to run this program 30 days a week out of the middle school for 40 weeks, which is for the entire school week. The program will run between 2:45 to 5:45. The idea here is to provide a safe space, supervised space for young people, which will help keep them and to make them stay out of unhealthy behaviors. Um, just speaking with talking about what we know based on the program that we've run so far. The school system has indicated, because I think when we started this program, the Boys and Girls Club had after school program, but they don't exist anymore, right? So the need has actually grown, not diminished. And so the importance of having this
But Austining doesn't have a boys and girls program. Boys
The
and girls.
Boys and Girls Club had
Club.
been running a club, they had been running an after-school program for a couple of years.
You're in
Um,
Austining.
yes,
Where are they located?
at the mid.
they were running it in the schools.
Yeah, where's the Boys and Girls Club? Which one?
I
is
think it was in northern Westchester
Oh, okay.
or
The
Mount
one in
Kisco one.
Kisco?
I'm pretty sure I think that was the one.
Yeah. So they, since they left, the need has actually grown. And so this program will help.
Ema, I'm so sorry. I can't
is
hear
stop.
you. I'm
Okay.
so sorry.
All right. So.
It's not you, it's the microphone.
All right, so what I said was, since the Boys and Girls Club has left, the need for this program has grown. And so continuing this program will help alleviate some of that need. Next slide, please. All right, so looking at the budget, for this program, we plan to have a coordinator, which is an existing staff, the youth advocate. And their time on this project will be 466 hours. That would translate into $27,468 dollars, right? And then you will have an office assistant staff here, which again is an existing staff for the village. What that will do is we build in a little bit of their time here to be able to help us as well with maybe some paperwork that as it relates to this project. And then you have a part-time staff here that'll be hired to help facilitate this program. And the cost for that would be $17,875. Again, looking at it, at the total grant is 50,000. The match for the grant is about 5,000, and then that brings us to about $55,000. The offset amount here based on the full-time staff from that will be working on this project is about $29,000. So again, the village would not be spending, but there will be sort of an offset for the village given this budget. Any questions about this?
Is this the end? Okay.
So the next one is, next slide, please, Jamie. All right, so this is a new grant. This is the one that Karen was just mentioning about the youth sports program. So this program will allow us to be able to serve 200 youth. Currently, the rec already runs some sort of a sports program.
Yeah, so basically this is a team sports program that the rec is already running, and this is more of a rec program. So they run, I think, basketball and soccer
And
clinics, serving about 150 kids, but they're fee-based. So they're done every year. If we got this grant, we would be able to increase the number of children who could participate from 150 to 200, but we'd also be able to run the program for free, which we don't do currently. So it does provide an opportunity to get more kids in. And the goal of the grant is, again, to level the playing field, no pun, and get as many kids involved in team sports as possible. But this is a brand new grant. I don't think this has been offered before. And this is really more of a recreation grant. Like we possibly could go for it even in the absence of the youth bureau, but there is an opportunity to make sure as we're reaching out to kids that we're identifying kids that would really benefit the most from this program, in addition to having it open to other kids as well.
So let me, so this would be expanding the current rec soccer program that's run
Mhm.
by whatever the third party woman that runs it, is that?
Yes, it would incorporate that component for the soccer.
Okay,
That's already, it basically would cover that expense, which is, as far as I can tell, the expense we're recouping with the fees right now.
right. So my question here is there are existing youth soccer programs in the village, ASO
Right.
specifically, right? So would this be taking, if you said the goal was to increase the number of people doing the rec program,
Well,
version,
it's
would this
to-
increase the number of, would this take people away from ASO and make that
I don't,
like that, or like, because it's a finite group, right? So I'm just trying to understand
I don't
like
think,
how the two play.
I don't think so. And I apologize, on behalf of Bill really is behind this, and unfortunately he's ill today and couldn't be at the meeting. So I can get back to you on that answer. And again, right now we're just looking for resolution to apply for the grants. We may not even get the grants. The way I understand it is they run the soccer clinic now. That's for a fee, but this would also incorporate other team sports. I think, I know basketball and soccer, I'm not sure if there's anything else. So it's a 14-week program that would be exposure to soccer and basketball. So I'm not sure it would really take the place of ASO. And if anything, it might complement it for some children. And then for some kids who are not accessing ASO for other reasons, financial reasons,
Yeah.
it would give them exposure. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I think, yeah, it will only increase and provide opportunities for kids that will perhaps will not have the resources to even participate in that, in ASO program, but this will give them the chance to be able to do so.
Yeah, they're not,
The other thing too, though.
they're not at the same, none of.
Yeah,
these
they're
are
not,
the
so
same time.
the timing of it's a little different too.
So
the
now we have
increase
hundred and
in-
fifty people
for-
paying some sort of a fee. Is it boys and girls, these sports?
Yes.
Okay, so 150 people paying some sort of fee, and the grant will allow an additional 50. So you're not taking away from the first 150 who've been paying a fee, right? Okay. All right, and 150 students, this and 200 teams, improve fitness and health. Okay. Is that? it?
Yeah, and then
It's-
just the next
the
slide
next
is
slide,
breaks
the
down the
budget.
budget for this too. So here you similarly
Is it
have,
one year?
this is a 1-year grant. Well,
It is a one.
it is a 1-year grant, but you do have opportunities. They have other rounds of this. So, you could run it as a, 1 year and then, if you can go back to the way you were running it subsequently, but here it's all rec staff. There really is no youth bureau staff here. So here, it runs,
No, the 12,000 is external.
no, it's encompassed.
Whoever was just speaking needs to get a microphone.
The 12,
12,000 is the external person that helps run it, I think.
right, but the 12, the reason I only we put staff because again, the variable is vendors and things. If you decide not to run the program, they wouldn't necessarily, they may be something we've done in the past, but they're not necessarily always going to be in the budget. If we decided not to do that program, but the point is, and I'm sorry if that's confusing, but the point is that the grant would cover everything we're doing so far, including the 12,000, which we had been paying previously. The grant revenue on this program is about $13,000. So that's the revenue that we made, and I think that revenue was really designed to offset the soccer vendor. But in the case of this grant, you'd get the $50,000. And you wouldn't have to, it would pay for the soccer vendor and it would pay for the staff that was doing the program historically. And you would be able to add more kids without, add more kids without having to charge any fee. And you'd still,
So there's no match on this grant?
no match.
Okay. Any comments or questions? All right, so my only macro philosophical issue with this. This is all great. It's all good. It isn't really in line with the mission of the Youth Bureau as we approved it years ago. One of them is an after-school program that the school should be doing, or somebody else should, and we're now taking over an after-school program. Sports, I think, do teach skill sets, team, it's not career driven, it's not, they're after-school programs for kids for free, which is very nice and it's wonderful. And who would say no to that? And we may not even have to pay, but everything does have a cost. It takes up space that could be used for other programs, and the list goes on. The mission of the Youth Bureau is mentoring, careers, safety. I mean, I just looked up your mission statement, driven by the kids, all this sort of stuff that is about building, not about after-school programs necessarily for people who need a place for free. So a couple of the programs fit with the mission. Maybe sports sort of does. The first one does maybe. The second one, not so much so. Girls and Boys Club actually are highly well-funded, so I'm sort of surprised they pulled out. Philosophically, when nonprofits pull out and then we start subsidizing, I could argue that all of this should be done by the school system, all of it. The grant bus thing, mentoring, some of the stuff that you guys do, the jobs in the summer, jobs, careers, lifeguard in the swim program. I know what those programs cost. It's really expensive to do a lifeguard program, really expensive now. And it's a whole career all over the world. I mean, you could actually get jobs while you're everywhere, all over the world. It's not just the US. So I could see that, but we're becoming the place that takes over after school programs, rather than a place that's doing what I thought when I said, let's do a youth bureau, and I voted yes on it. In these specific programs, the fact that financially it's not a huge burden is fantastic. But we have to be really careful, because I could tell you that if you did another 100 programs for after school programs, if you opened a babysitting service all year round, you would get thousands of kids here. There is an infinite need for those programs. I'm not sure that a youth bureau is the place that we agree to when we set all this up, is the catch for all of that. People need people to take care of their kids while they're working. The lower the income in the family, the more of a need they have so that both people can work. They need a safe space. They need a place for their teens. It is not actually, when people said, let's put a youth bureau, is what was sold to this board. And I just need you guys to be really careful to continue with programs like the Grandpa's program, maybe Grandma's soon, career development, leadership skills, all of that stuff. Even the fact that we ended up hiring for the village most of the interns, when originally it was supposed to be businesses are supposed to hire at different levels. We became the largest employer. All good. Frankly, I think more people should learn about municipalities and how things work. And even if it's scanning, believe you me, I spent an entire scanning in a bank job doing nothing but copying on a machine, and put that on the resume that I worked in the bank, which got me a job. All good. We all start somewhere. Got no problem. So for me, it's a philosophical issue. It's not that I wouldn't vote for this. I just don't think that the youth bureau that we approved is the catch basin or the catch net for babysitting, for after-school programs. Our school and our taxes, and I'm a taxpayer like everybody else who lives here, is huge. The schools should be doing this kind of stuff. Swimming, I understand. Big fan. So I'm just concerned. I'm not going to say no to this. It's a need, but one would also argue that it's a need that is an infinite need in the community. And so the fact that it's a need is not really a selling proposition. I'm interested in career advancement. I'm interested in teaching people to network. I'm interested in being mentored by different age groups. that's what we voted yes on when the Youth Bureau concept of integrating kids, not just at the lower income level. That was not actually what was propositioned when we said yes. In fact, it was the opposite. It's integrating the community, not just one segment of the community. So I just want to put a little bit of a label on this that say, I don't want to fall into what schools should be doing and other nonprofits should be doing. I want this to be what we approved, which is a place to elevate teens to 20-year-olds to whatever, which I think most of your programs do, not just based just on needs, because that's infinite. Frankly, if you opened a babysitting service, you'd have 1,000 people for free. I think you'd have 1,000 people lined up, honestly, at all ages. And if you opened a senior program, you'd have even more. Those are great things. But I'm so interested in those other pieces that I think youth bureaus are so important to fill. And out of these 3 programs, teams, it's not only ASO, there's like many of these programs for boys, for girls, for teens. I get it. It's not going to cost us a lot. I would say yes to it, but I'm just concerned about, I want you guys to look for programs that are really about what you're uniquely qualified for, not just what there's a need in space for. And the swimming is a big part of that. So I love the swimming program. It hits all the marks. I mean, okay, some of it is a little bit of babysitting, but most of it hits all the marks and is fantastic. So big yes on that. Some of it is a little bit of a philosophically I have. And I know that there are many more grants and you have to be really careful, and you've been really careful about deciding the ones that we don't have to pay even more into. And I really appreciate that, because there were other conversations and you put a lot of work into it. So I just want you guys to focus on all this amazing stuff that nobody can do except you guys. What other groups can do and what the schools should be doing. And believe me, I've been critical of school before, so it's not like anybody would sit there and go, "Ooh, why is the mayor critical?" I'm critical because I think they should do more. That's why I'm critical. I think they should do more, period.
Can I
So
ask
this
a
is good.
question?
Yeah.
So what team sports would be involved? Just soccer
Well, there's
Any others?
basketball also.
and basketball?
But this, I just want to delineate, we're putting it under because we're really trying to make the Youth Bureau more efficient. Again, and to be able to pursue some of these other things. There's the recreation department's a great feeder into the Youth Bureau, because that's where, if kids come in, that's where you can reach them. And sports is a good way to reach kids who may need mentorship too. This particular program is a program that the rec is already running. This is just a way to pay for something that the recreation is already doing. It's not really a Youth Bureau program. I think that I just want to say, and I'm sure Chima and Harry have a comment. We looked at this through that lens,
Right.
and so you have certain pots of available funding, and then you have, we all know the trying to get a grant that works for everybody. One of the things about the middle school program is because the middle school kids may not be able to, participate in the job programs, and the Youth Bureau does serve younger kids. We actually had the conversation about, do we really need another after-school we had that conversation. One of the reasons we decided to keep it going is because it is a feeder for the Youth Bureau, because those kids getting them in middle school, that cohort where they can talk about, some of their programming is a little bit more mentoring oriented, but that does help feed into when the kids get to high school, so
Well,
that's a little bit of the
Pretty
rationale.
pretty oversubscribed, so a feeder is interesting, but look,
Well,
I love-
I'll
I
let
love
Chima
your
and Harry
programs.
discuss it.
I love your programs. I'm encouraging you. You have this model of mentorship. You do stuff that others don't do. I am trying to encourage you to play that one and lean right into all of that and not become the place for what I think others are also equipped to do. Because what you do, not everybody else can do. And there are certain programs, and I know the balance is but we don't want, the grants have to pay for it. I get that. And that doesn't always work. So I'm just trying to encourage you to do what you guys are really great at and continue doing that amazing work and more of that and more creative stuff. So I think this is great. And I know where you started with this, and this is great because it's not going to cost us a lot. I understand that. I'm just trying to encourage the kids and the programs they want to do, and how do we get them those programs and the mentorship and the career building. And it's not really just career jobs. I mean, it's not just careers. There's also good jobs that some of them are interested in that are a little bit off the beaten path, and maybe we can help them with that. So anyway, this is a meeting about whether they should go for the grants. So I'm not seeing anybody saying no. All right, so thank you for bringing it into a realistic, but please keep strong on the high level stuff and keep people's feet to the fire on what they should be doing so that you guys could do what you should be doing.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a comment regarding some of the concerns you raised. So regarding the after-school program, what we've seen is there are kids in the middle school that that have participated in our program
Right.
and really had, just like Karen said, slide right in. And now those kids are in the high school, and what they're doing now is they don't forget the youth bureau. They participating in our summer
Right.
leadership program, in our civilian academy program, and so we believe that it's a good segue into other programming. And it's, one thing about the youth bureau is it's and that's something that sometimes get conflated. The youth bureau really focuses on positive youth development program. That's the framework here. And so part of that, you can argue that will be providing opportunities for those middle school. But your concern is well taken, and I share those same concern as you. As you already can see, we are making a lot of progress, a lot of effort to focus on career readiness because we know how important it is. We know it is vital. Even the state recognizes that. Hence, they invest in more
Right.
resources into that, and we really appreciate that. And so, our hope is to be able to continue in that line, and hopefully, if we were to get the year-round employment grant, that will allow us. That will be a huge
That would be a big deal.
opportunity
Yeah.
for us to be able to provide not just work experience, not just exposure for young people, but also subsidize families' income, which is critical in this economy. So I agree with you. And as you know, our grandpa program, it's the lens at which we're looking at it is mentoring and workforce, right? We have some great grandpa members that worked at Wall Street and have a lot of experiences, and they are available to expose and provide share some of those experiences with our young people. And so, our goal is to be able to utilize those resources that we have. But I do agree with you that workforce is the key here, and positive youth development activities is the key here, and we're going to be double our effort on those.
Well, it's a key for what I think you guys are really good at.
Yeah.
There are others that do the other stuff too, but for you, I mean,
Yeah.
that's like a big place. The mentoring is a big deal. All right, are there any other questions? We're moving forward with these particular grants.
Yeah, and I just
I'm sorry,
want,
Harry. I didn't realize you wanted to.
Yeah, just one quick comment. So I think first of all, I just wanted to point out that, for the after school program, there are actual activities going on. So it's not really
I saw that. Yeah.
babysitting, right? So that was one. And the other thing I would say is that, like, the comments, the discussion, that you just had, I think a lot of that would be helpful that we talk about at the Youth Advisory Board meetings, because we do have, the board there, and a
Yep.
lot of times I think some of them don't feel as involved
Yeah.
in the process. And these are the types of things that I think would be helpful to discuss at those meetings so that we could,
Yep.
you know, decide on the policy of what we're gonna do. So that's all I want
Great.
to say.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay,
Thank you.
Karen,
Very much.
you guys could stay, but you don't need to.
Thank you both very much for joining us. Our next topic, we've been talking about cannabis dispensaries and cannabis zoning. So tonight we have Valerie Monastra and our land use counsel, Linda Whitehead, here to talk about zoning. And we'll also be talking about Valerie will be talking about the moratorium too. So thank you both.
Hello. So we're here tonight, so as the board knows that you're contemplating, undertaking a moratorium on cannabis dispensaries, and to look at the zoning. And so what, Linda and I prepared for you was a memo really focusing on some of the topics or some of the areas that we can take a look at in terms of what potentially could be regulated as a result of, for cannabis dispensaries. And we're really here for like more or less like a dialogue, and then also to answer any questions you have on what can be regulated, not regulated. And that's why we have Linda here, because she's, her and her firm have been really studying the regulations because they're constantly shifting. So we wanted to start off, I mean, I think we already went through a number of the issues last time I appeared before the board and about the potential properties. I attached the same map as I attached last time, so you have a general sense of like the areas that would allow for cannabis dispensaries, or previously before if the moratorium goes into effect. But as of right now, it's all your commercial districts. So, I mean, I'll just kind of highlight really briefly the different categories that, and I purposely we purposely noted in the memo that may be able to be controlled, because as Linda will, we'll dive into a little bit more detail, but there are certain restrictions or certain, caveats for each one of these things. But one could be potentially creating like a new category of use. Also focusing on time, place, and manner, maybe dealing with some regulations associated with that, dealing with hours of operation, visual or architectural integrity of the buildings, parking, traffic control, odor and noise, and then potentially distance requirements between a cannabis facility and a public youth facility. And public youth facility is a facility that's really primarily for youth, so it can be a particular community, like a community center that's used for many different types of ages. So anyhow, so that's the broad categories of some of the things we can control. And then we can also look at, where you would potentially allow for some of these uses. And we are looking at not just only cannabis dispensary, but also potentially vape shops, smoke shops, vape lounges, and vape consumption areas too. So with that, I think maybe we just start off or open this conversation about, some thoughts that you had on this issue, and maybe or if you have any particular questions as well.
Anyone?
I've spoken about this a lot. I don't know if I have any new questions.
Okay.
I mean, can we restrict the number that open up within our village? And you cannot, okay. Can we can restrict where they are though, relative to youth facilities and churches and
So
schools?
churches and schools, buildings used exclusively for school, are already covered in the law. The law provides 200 feet from the entrance of a building occupied exclusively as a house of worship, and 500 feet from school grounds for a property that's used exclusively for a school. The school grounds is the thing that was clarified recently by the state, where they had been measuring it from the door of the school, and in fact, the law specifically says school grounds.
Mm,
So it's actually the property line. That's where they had the issue with some that they approved locations that
Mhm.
they shouldn't have.
mhm.
They didn't read their own law. In making the regulations over the last several years, they put out proposed regulations, and then when they put out the actual regulations, they made a number of changes. So I think things weren't what a lot of people thought they were gonna be. But they are very specific in stating sort of how they have preempted the law and limiting what a municipality can do. And what it really comes down to is a municipality that hasn't opted out cannot be so restrictive as to make it virtually impossible or make it difficult for someone to locate a retail dispensary in the municipality. So, there was a law that actually limited, so much so that in the town where it was passed, there was only 5 properties that could have been used, and that was overturned. Recently, this summer, there was, and this was interesting because it wasn't the Office of Cannabis Management that got this overturned, but the town of Riverhead had adopted a law that went beyond the restrictions in the cannabis law, which said 1,000 feet between dispensaries, and they had tried to adopt a law that said 2,500 feet between. And it was overturned, saying that the state had preempted that by saying it had to be 1,000 feet. They couldn't make it larger. So, that was actually a court that made that decision. The bigger concern is that the Office of Cannabis Management seems to have the ability to determine that a law you adopted is too unreasonably restrictive. So they do state specifically that a municipality can adopt time, place, and manner restrictions. And they specifically list some of the things that Valerie listed right in the regulations, the hours of operation, visual or architectural integrity of buildings within historical districts, parking, traffic control, odor, and noise. So for instance, you could put in, define the use, as Valerie has suggested, and say that use is allowed in these zones. It could be fewer than where all retail uses are allowed. You could also put in a parking requirement. And a parking requirement is gonna end up limiting it. Because there's some of your retail areas don't have a lot of parking. So if this is a use that you think, because it's gonna bring people, it needs more parking, you could adopt a minimum parking requirement or a per square foot parking requirement. There's a risk on anything you adopt that somebody's gonna challenge it and they're gonna look at it and say it makes it unreasonably impractical for someone to locate. But, you know, we tried to outline for you some of the things we think that you could do.
You know, I mean, now the public youth facility, I mean, I would assume that, you know, some of your parks that are specifically aimed at.
I think it would be really hard to do a park because a park is not, the language is where the primary purpose is to provide recreational opportunities or services to children or adolescents.
But that's what a playground is. There is a
Yeah.
playground,
If
it's not a
strictly
park.
a Playground.
That's all, that's
park,
actually
yeah.
what it is. It's just a playground
Uh,
across the
So that
street.
anybody has tried that. but
Okay.
That's one you could.
Right.
But
try.
parking is within a purview because if I read the presentation correctly, no less than 5 employees at all times. That's 5 cars before you even blink an eye in every parking lot. Some of those you can't park on Route 9, so, you know, there's residential areas I guess. But, you know, there's 5 people with 5 cars before you even blink in that place. In every place. So I guess parking we can look at. This is all to be discussed during period of moratorium, correct? Okay. We're
Yes.
being given now what is
That's
some
why
of the
you-
options
Yeah,
Right.
that's why you would be adopting the moratorium to allow you to look at
to look
this.
at this, right?
So, you know, I
Okay.
do think as Valerie has laid out, you define the use. So it's not just a retail use that's permitted wherever retail is permitted. And then you say, okay, that use, we're gonna permit in these zones, because
Mhm.
right now it's permitted everywhere you permit retail.
Got it?
So you can limit that, you could put in a parking requirement. You just have to make sure that at the end of the day, when you do all those things, you haven't made it so that there's only like 2 properties in the village where it's permitted.
Right, I think one of the things that I would like to get feedback on from the board is, right now, there have been no dispensaries, uh, applications submitted for the Village Center District. And so the question is whether you want to allow for the Village Center District to have potential dispensary or those types of shops, or whether you want to exclude that particular district from, from that type of.
The
use.
village center is which streets?
The
Main
Village
Street?
Center is mostly your downtown,
Downtown, Croton Avenue?
portion, a very small portion
Small,
of it.
lower
Most of
portion?
the Upper Croton Avenue is NC2. And.
So it's downtown, basically.
Mhm. I mean, that's because you already have NC1, which is Neighborhood Center 1, and NC2, Neighborhood Center 2, as districts that are going to have cannabis dispensaries in them. And then also your SPM, which is Station Plaza North, is another one that you already have. But you don't have anything right now for the Village Center, so I wanted to see if that was one area that you wanted to potentially exclude and kind of keep the uses along like Route 9, or as you have right down by the train station.
Well, people seem to like Route 9 because of the 16,000 cars a day that go through there. So, we want you for your traffic.
Well, the village center, that would also fall into where we could do the visual and architectural integrity, right? With the buildings and historical
Yes,
districts.
I mean, technically, right. Technically, they would automatically have to go to the HPC if they fall within the historic district, yes. And, right.
Parking is, because if you say that you want parking related to that, they're really.
Yeah, but how would you
Is it?
regulate that on Main Street?
Well, how does the parking garage come into that then? The new parking
They
that
have parking.
They could require on.
Right.
on site? All right.
Right, I mean, my suggestion would be if for some reason we're looking at all these other parameters just to say, so that way people don't develop that within your village center, then I would just recommend not including the village center at that. use.
So it leaves mostly Route 9
Right,
and by the water, like the.
right,
waterfront.
now, I mean, you do technically allow,
Oh, in Upper Croton.
yes, it would be Upper Croton. You do technically in your planned waterfront districts, you can have retail in those. Now, some of those are all the way back by like North Water Street, which I think would probably be less likely to have like cannabis dispensaries. However, you did recently put in the ability to have like a growing facility in that area. So technically you could have like a retail associated with that. Then PWB, which is your planned waterfront B, which is right around where your new development is taking place for 30 Water Street. And then PWC is where 34 State Street is located, just giving you general ideas of where those are. So, I mean, we could restrict some of the cannabis dispensaries away from some of those particular zoning
Well, the
districts.
Austin Children's Center is gonna create a
Right.
buffer,
Right.
right?
An education center.
That
Well,
qualifies
that
as
technically,
It's
I
not a
mean,
I
school.
think that classifies.
it might because it has funding from the pre-K program there, so.
Right, so school is, I looked at this in a while, school includes nursery schools.
If they're, I think by New York State.
No, and
Oh,
not,
no,
it
they
doesn't
changed
limit
it?
that way.
Okay.
But they have to, like, in some instances, you're not getting the protection from those, nursery school or preschool programs because they're located within a church. So it's not a building exclusively used as a school, but that is, correct? That,
Yeah.
yeah.
How does this affect the existing dispensaries in progress?
Right, so it does not affect the three that were approved. So, excuse me, the conversation about like the VC set, that does not affect the three that were approved.
So whatever changes would.
In, right, in terms of like some of the other criteria, we have worked out, they already have, all of them have provided parking. So, and all of them, we have specific hours of operation, but the cannabis or the cannabis law requires that you cannot restrict to less than 70 hours per week. And I believe most of them are like a little bit over 70 hours. So they're not like around the clock. They all agreed to reduce some of their hours.
They've all been through site plan
Yeah.
approval already, so you would likely grandfather them.
Right.
Well, they meet most of the criteria anyway.
Right, they are meeting most of the criteria, and I think that's because they picked, good spots, but we're just trying to have this conversation because technically you could have somebody coming in with not so great of a spot, and it becomes a little bit more difficult to regulate that.
And the planning board worked with each of them on things like the parking. To make sure
But
that
you
that
see
these,
the other ones that have come in after the three.
Other two.
Yeah,
most
the other
recent.
two. Right.
Would those also, this would not restrict them?
One of them would if we look to include playgrounds,
Mhm.
right? One of them could potentially be restricted because of its right.
Also,
across the street.
I think their idea of shared
Right.
parking, in my opinion, doesn't
And the
fall
shared
into
parking,
parking.
that's
That's
correct.
not a thing.
Yes. And then the other one, which hasn't even been, like, the
Right.
building would have to be built, that one would potentially be, allowed. And
They
that would
they
be
said they're
within
not
the
doing
business
that
district,
anymore, didn't
right.
they? Yeah.
They change their mind,
Yeah,
but there might be other buildings that
Right.
come up.
right. And so theoretically, that would be the general business district, that would be on Route 9 and, that would be possible.
So Route 9 is a pretty big route, and things that are by the train station or the waterfront, I would argue that business would say, well, we have the traffic from the train coming in,
Right.
or there's a park there or whatever. But for me, the downtown should not be zoned for this because I don't think there's legitimate parking. Everybody jumping on the same parking, which is not actually right there. And
Right.
then, but Route 9's a pretty big area in this village. That's a pretty commercial, gas stations, all sorts of whatever. And I guess if it's Chilmark and, which is actually, I think, the town, and Arcadian, that's really up to the landlord. You could zone for things, but it's the landlord in the end of the day,
Right.
whether they want to allow or not, regardless of what we do.
That's
It's
correct.
their property, it's not ours. So we can think about that. That's a zone in itself, I think, Arcadian. That's a
That's
zone.
the plan center.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't know we were having the whole moratorium discussion tonight, but you're giving us suggestions to what to think about.
things
right?
to think about
Right.
for.
Right.
Yeah,
So
but
then we'll come back to you with some revised zoning text amendments to start then responding to and reflecting on.
appreciate the thought. I guess, as I've thought about it, I think I would kind of agree with the suggestion that the village center and PWC, Plan Waterfront C, would be excluded.
Mm.
Primarily because of the children's center is right there. You got 150 kids a day coming in and out of that, and from that perspective, right?
Right.
And so I think that's,
So I'm not sure where you would fit parking in that area at this point.
yeah, it's from parking, it's tough too, right? I agree with some sort of parking based limitation, which says you need to have, number of people per shift plus X, right?
And your
Yeah.
point about the shared parking, I agree with. I think the idea of
yeah.
shared parking is not actually parking.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me until I was looking at it afterwards. I relooked at the presentation after you sent out the letter. And I was like, is there anything else in here? And I was just like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. So sorry for throwing it.
Shared parking works when you have multiple uses with very different peak times. this isn't a use that really has a peak time. I think this is a use that.
Right.
Right.
It's steady flow during the
Yeah.
day, at night, whatever.
Mhm.
from that
And in
perspective.
both businesses, at least now, now look, the business could change tomorrow, right? We don't know.
Yep.
But employees, you know, it's the same issue. It's, you know,
I would, be interested in putting some limitation on proximity to playgrounds. I'd originally thought parks, but if parks are not like too broad, then, you know, most of our playgrounds are, and you specifically said, youth and adolescent, is that the language in the
it's
law?
18 and under.
Right,
so
so,
that's the
so,
playground,
so
yeah.
that's, so that would be all of our playgrounds, right, from that perspective.
But
And
if
so-
they're in a park, we've got to look at, you know, if they're in a
Right.
bigger park.
Understand.
Well, some of them
that's-
are, but
that's
some of
the-
them aren't.
to kind
Some
of-
of
Like Triangle Park or, you know.
We'll look.
Even in Upper Croton, that little triangular thing, that's just a playground. It's not
Right,
part
that's
of a
just a
park.
Yeah, there are a few that are just like.
Yeah, they're just like, yeah.
Playgrounds.
Yeah, and that would exclude the rec center, which then would also avoid any potential conflict with the previously approved applicant
Right,
from that perspective.
Right.
Right, so that to me doesn't create a potential
right.
need to grandfather somebody, right? Because you've
Right.
got,
You don't
you
have-
know, adults, you've got, you know,
Yeah.
Right.
high school age kids, you've got
That's
elderly
correct, yeah.
programs. I
Community
think
center,
community
rec
center,
center.
That's not gonna
Right.
work, but you do have, you know, a couple of playgrounds
That was
specifically.
one of the big changes from the draft regulations to the final, is the drafts referred to just community centers. And it didn't have the language about primarily serving children or adolescents.
So my only last question that I had thought about before this was, in the clarification that came out in August, you know, they gave a number of whatever, like 50 previously approved licenses that shouldn't be. Is the one on North State Street, on North Highland in Ossining, is that one? Incorrectly, because it's within 500 feet of the St. Augustine property,
It's not that
Church
close,
up
is it?
200 feet.
Yeah,
but
and
it's a school too, so
Yeah, and
If
it's,
it's a school within a church property, it doesn't get the school protection.
it gets 200.
yeah, but it's also on the same side of the road,
Yes,
and that's on the
same road.
opposite side.
Oops, I thought it was.
No, the one on,
No.
way up on North Highland is on the other side of the
Yeah.
road.
It's the opposite side.
Yeah,
The language is opposite side?
Yeah.
And one language is same side?
So
That's what-
retail, these are retail businesses, correct?
Well, we're looking to redefine them so that they're not covered just as a
Right.
retail business, but it's a specifically defined use.
For us to make that, because my question is about the village center.
Yeah.
You have retail businesses there and we're hanging our hat on parking. I think they have an argument if we don't change it to a certain use. That, you know, you're knocking them out of the block for parking, but you've got other retail uses. Not that I'm an advocate for the village center. I'm just saying, you open up a can of worms.
But you-
Because you could, no, if you've got a retail business, you don't have adequate parking for that retail business on Main Street.
Because you don't have to, it's just.
No, they don't either. It's a retail business.
No, that's what she's saying. You can actually do parking even if it's under a retail. Isn't that what you
We're
just
we're
said?
making it not under a retail use.
Not what
We're
you
gonna
said.
make it its own
Oh,
defined.
okay.
right,
so
and
that's
we're,
how
and
they're
we're
doing-
planning to,
okay.
we're recommending, we're gonna remove that, so it's prohibited in the village center,
Okay, so
so that.
that's where I was going
Yeah.
because there's other retail businesses and how are we hanging our hat on parking? And
Exactly,
so I just wanted to be careful with that.
yes.
So basically it becomes another row under the commercial use group on all these
Yes,
states.
that's what we're doing,
Right,
yes,
so we're gonna change that.
yeah,
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
okay. All right, so I think we have
Yeah.
a general sense of moving
Great.
forward, and we'll come back with some revisions for you, to take a look at.
Okay. Thank you. Next,
I think I'm just supposed to give you an update that the planning board, oh, did you wanna?
Ed, I just didn't know if you needed an in.
Said it's you,
Just run the meeting.
You run the meeting now.
keep going.
Okay,
Sorry, I need to go back. He just brought up something that I forgot to say is that the whole concept of consumption. So
Yes.
the vaping consumption, the hookah lounge consumption to me is something that should be part of the exclusion.
We
Yes.
opted out of that.
But
You
that's,
opted out
that's,
of the cannabis
But,
consumption.
but
Vape
the
shops.
vape shop,
Yes.
vape shop,
but they have regulations on that, don't they? About the consumption outside the store?
So there's consumption like immediately outside the store, but you can have a vape shop next door to you. Right?
When we say vape shop, are we talking about a smoke shop or?
Yes.
Where you can buy vapes of any type, not THC vapes, tobacco vapes,
Yes, well, there's, right, and then there's also other.
kind of a
other
different
kinds
animal.
Of
Uh.
like THC that's not really like under,
Regulated,
right, but,
yeah.
but you can technically buy them at the smoke shops too.
so I was being more kind of like the consumption vape shops, like a hookah lounge. Like a hookah lounge kind of thing, right?
Yes, but I think also, I think we were also looking at trying to prevent, so in some communities have been concerned that, you know, once you have the cannabis dispensaries, then you have like, I'm gonna say, allied retail businesses also popping up around them. So the idea here would be to kind of keep those also out of the
Same.
village center, same areas, and just kind of have them along the Route 9 and the down, you know, the same districts we just talked about.
But again, the existing ones would stay where they are.
Mhm.
Right.
No, they're fine.
Yeah, and in all reality, what we're looking to do would still, they're still in
Yeah,
the zoning districts,
wouldn't
but they
affect
would be fine.
We need to reinforce to them that's the case. I don't know if
I think they know.
Okay.
Yes, I think they understand.
Alright.
We're not the only
In a way,
place
it's
to
good
look.
for them.
Yes, there, yeah, one of them came up to me at that last, at a function. He was happy. Okay, let's
Okay.
move on.
Did we talk about the planning board? What are we talking
Okay,
about?
so the planning board so we were just talking about how the moratorium, the planning board was in support of the moratorium. They too also were wondering if this was going to be a conversation before the village board soon because of the number of applications they were receiving as well.
So the answer is yes. Next,
All right.
Now Valerie's going to talk about the T-zone. I'll let her go into more detail.
So I have been before this board. We talked a little bit about the T zones. Well,
good night.
I provided this board a little bit more information, a map of the T districts, the locations of T districts and the uses that are there within the T districts. And one of the things that we want to talk about is that, you know, I think we talked to, you know, even today when the land use boards chairs were meeting, you know, a couple things came up in terms of the densities that you see sometimes in the T districts. And you do have some larger, like you do have a few larger properties within the T districts. And you also have conditional uses on the books that are more intense uses, such as like schools, such as like religious, and then you have senior living facilities. You have a number of things in the conditional uses that if some properties were to come in for a conditional use permit with those uses, that would really, I think, increase some of the intensity of the uses within those residential districts. And so what we'd like to do is take a look at those conditional uses, potentially move them instead of conditional uses to like a special permit use, which makes it a little bit more, have a little bit more discretion as to whether those permits get issued. The other thing is we wanted to take a look at a couple of the larger properties that, especially that border, your conservation development district, because maybe they would be more apt to potentially be rezoned for another zoning district as opposed to the T zones. Mostly because the fact that the only permitted uses in your T districts is single family or two family homes. And so it becomes a little bit more difficult, especially when I'm gonna say, so a couple of the larger properties are more remnants of like former larger buildings, you know, that you're less likely to have somebody purchase that property and come in and say, we're going to just build single family homes there. You're more likely going to have somebody come in asking for some sort of rezoning or some or other type of use. And it might be worth taking a look at that currently now before you're being reactive and instead being proactive. So we wanted to kind of have this conversation with the board because we've been doing this and individually on some of the zoning districts where we're really relooking at some of the uses. And this is one in particular that we already know there's a lot of non-conforming uses. And we also know that the density in these districts are higher than technically what's in the zoning because approximately 70% of the lots in the T district are non-conforming in size. So you kind of get a sense that it's already denser than it is. And so what we'd like to do is make some changes similar to the modifications we've been making in like the Riverfront Development District, just making modifications to the uses and then maybe looking at a couple properties that we might want to consider rezoning to some of the adjacent zones so that we know that there'll be something, a pathway forward for those properties. And again, this is just a discussion, and then if you are in favor of that, we'll come back with some zoning edits for you very shortly.
Will you come back with the parcels that
Yes, yeah.
are in question?
Right, a couple of them are along North Malcolm in particular that we're looking at,
Mhm.
that we think that maybe we might want to rezone to a slightly into the adjacent. There is a conservation development district within that or adjacent to
Mhm.
some of those properties, so that might make more sense. So yes, a couple of those
Mhm.
I'd like to come back.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense to do the same thing. Give ourselves a chance to think through it a little bit more appropriately. So
Mhm.
for me, like following the process of, okay, we're gonna put a moratorium on, but it needs to be specific, right? Like, so like people still need to be able to like improve
Yes.
their houses.
Right, so
People still need to be able to improve existing stuff like
Yeah.
that, right? Because we don't want to
yes.
stop that.
Right, I think my suggestion would be if we were gonna consider a moratorium would be just for the conditional uses within the, so anybody that has a single family or two family, you know, that wants to, right, all the permitted uses would be able to move forward.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, just my one comment is just looking at the use tables. The CDD also has some similar
Right,
conditional uses
right, which is,
as the T zone. So would we also consider switching that one as well?
right, I do think so, not necessarily, I mean, I think with the Conservation Development District, we can, that's something I don't necessarily think we have to do a moratorium on because a lot of that area has already, is to a larger extent already developed. But I do think it is something that I think is worth us taking a look at, especially with some of the conditional uses. I mean, we haven't looked at those since like 2000 when this was last adopted, which was like in 2009. So it's especially with some of those in terms of the parameters that are required for those uses. Because right now, a few of them, and I think back in 2009, there was, you had a number of even just recently, like for example, St. Anne's School was a school that was operating back in 2009. So the assumption was that some of these uses were just sort of like on the books and they just kind of carried it over because they figured, there's not really going to be much movement in a number of these different things. And I think at this point, it's probably worth taking a look at them again.
Thank you, Valerie. Next, I'd like to talk about the ETPA opt-out program, just to provide the board a little update. If you may remember a couple months ago, we spoke about the fact that compliance was a bit challenging for many, many reasons. And in speaking to Homes and Community Renewal, which is the state agency that administers ETPA, and in speaking to our colleagues and with help from Valerie and gaining information from other communities, we realized like we have a wide berth to look at ways to, make sure there's compliance, but we want really to just make this program work. We really took HUD requirements, are the same requirements that they use for the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is basically Section 8, to look at like, a self-declaration of income notarized is sufficient, for Section 8. We are still going to require that or recommend that the landlords who are looking to opt out, and again, their complaints were, a lot of employees didn't want to disclose information. There may have been concerns about, various things that, they may be within the income range. And this is again, to opt out, you have to have 20% of your total, rental units rented at 50% AMI or lower. So, given all those challenges, we worked diligently with the landlords for some time, and given all the challenges, we decided allowing for a notarized statement of or affidavit to be signed by the applicant, and have which describes their income, and have it notarized would be sufficient. We will ask the landlords, though, that they do keep any information they can, and we've alliterated this in a letter that's going to go out, so that pay stubs and tax returns, those things that we still would like them to collect it, and that we may ask for that at some point if we feel the program's being abused. But basically, I think that we're in a place where we believe that there is, the landlords are trying to comply. It's not easy. That said, I think we also want to make sure that the residents are very well aware that this program is going on. So we will be asking them to post in their common areas, a statement that we'll draft as well, that just basically says this is an ETPA opt-out program, and this is what it means. If you believe that you're, if this is the income range, if you believe you qualify, you could potentially have a subsidized housing unit. So that's where we are. So I'm going to draft a letter to go out within the next couple of weeks, and along with the document that we want them to print out and hang in their lobbies. And I will just send that to you all for review before I send it out. Okay. And the next issue, so thank you, Valerie. I think, well, oh, yes, the next one. So the next issue, and very, very timely, is where we talked about grants a lot the last two meetings, and sometimes a grant really, the juice really isn't worth the squeeze. And several years ago, we got a grant from the DEC, and it was a $50,000 grant with a 50% match, to do a study for waterfront resiliency along the waterfront. And Trustee Yost, you might remember, because Chatham was involved, and we were talking to them. We were talking to Westerly. We weren't able to talk to the Paradise Oil owners, but the reality is this really is about creating public access with the resiliency. And we tried many, many ways to sort of make this work. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really seem like it's worthwhile for us to do this, given the limited amount of public access, because there really wasn't a lot of interest from the people, the owners already down there, to have public access. In some places, it wasn't really even feasible. And because there is a 50% match, and because this is a study grant too, which means that, you know, we don't want to do a study that sits on a shelf, and this sort of had the potential to be that. So we would like to rescind this grant. But we've never done this before because usually we make good use of our grants. So we are going on the assumption that getting a grant requires a resolution, so giving it up probably should too. So we would like to have a resolution on for next week to rescind this particular grant.
I'm for it. Anybody else?
Sure. Okay, and then to continue on our grant discussions, we did receive a grant, a CREST grant for $100,000 from trustee Yost, and it was determined that we would use it to offset. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it's so
I
late.
got so scared.
From from Senator Pete Harkam. Gosh, I apologize. I don't even know where that came from, so I apologize. I think it's
No,
getting
we don't
late.
wanna know.
It's been a long day. But anyway, we got it from Senator Pete Harkam, and we decided this was for outdoor amenities, a very wide range of uses, but we decided to offset costs for the multimodal transportation hub and put it towards the outside amenities that we're looking for there. So there's about $300,000 estimated for the seeding and native plantings and the art scrim. And we'll look at that as a project and make this a grant to fund $100,000 of that cost for that, that particular, this particular CREST grant from Senator Harkam. And we just need to have a resolution on next week so that I can submit that. That's due on the 29th. I will be coming back to the board once we determine, we just received an indication from Assemblywoman Levenberg that she also has a $100,000 grant that we can use towards some sort of capital need similarly. So that's not due until October sometime. So I will come back once we determine what that's going to do. And I will share some thoughts on that with the board so we can make a determination how we want to use that money. And that's all
All
for
right,
tonight.
that works. Anything else? All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yay. Okay, we are on next Wednesday at the courthouse for a legislative session. It is 10:02. Have a good night.